This episode of The Unstarving Musician is powered by liner notes. Learn from the hundreds of musicians and industry professionals I've spoken with for The Unstarving Musician on topics such as marketing, songwriting, touring, sync licensing, and much more. Sign up for liner notes at unstarvingmusician.com. It's an email newsletter from yours truly in which I share some of the best knowledge gems garnered from the many conversations featured on The Unstarving Musician. You'll also be privy to the latest podcast episodes and liner notes subscriber exclusives. Sign up at unstarvingmusician.com. It's free and you can unsubscribe at any time. This is The Unstarving Musician. I am Rabanza. This is my podcast. It features conversations with indie music artists and industry professionals and relevant special topic episodes featuring yours truly, all intended to help independent music artists better understand the marketing, business, creative processes, and other things that empower us to do more of what we love, make music. Welcome to another episode. I'm so honored to have you listening to me today. Hey, real quick, we need your support at The Unstarving Musician. We always do. You can support us in many ways. You can follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can tell a friend about the podcast. That would be fantastic. Or you can visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor or the notes for this episode, the show notes for this episode, to learn more about the many ways of offering your support. We appreciate it so much. My guest for this episode is Shilpa Ananth. Shilpa is an Indian vocalist, songwriter, and performing artist based in between the U.S. and the UAE. Her sound is described as fusing the dreamy landscapes of South India with soul, jazz, and electronic influences. Shilpa brings together three of the oldest Indian languages, Tamil, Malayalam, and Hindi, with English, creating art that transcends borders and cultures. After graduating with honors from the Berklee College of Music, Shilpa released a debut EP called Indian Soul. She's recorded and performed with Grammy Award-winning composers A.R.Rahman, Bobby McFerrin, Bill Whalen, Chandrika Tandon, and Javier Limon's original quartet. Javier, I hope I said your name right if you're listening. She has also toured extensively with Serbian female vocal group ROSA, R-O-S-A, the Berklee Indian Ensemble, Women of the World, and the Bollywood Boulevard musical production, performing at several prestigious venues around the U.S., such as Boston Symphony Hall, Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center, Apollo Theater, NJPAC, Wolf Trap, and the John F. Kennedy Center, to name a few. That's quite a list. Shilpa is a featured vocalist on the recently Grammy-nominated album Ona by Thana Alexa, as well as an awardee of the title Best Indian Artist at the Blue Rhymes Entertainment Honorary Awards in 2020. She is also a recipient of both the New York Foundation for the Arts Women's Fund for Media, Music, and Theater in 2020, as well as the Music Grantee 2020 for the Café Royale Cultural Foundation in New York. Man, this girl's done it all. Shilpa is currently finishing up her second EP of original music titled Reproduction. It's set to release in the fall of this year, 2023. You can hear her latest single, The Search, which will be featured on the forthcoming EP. There will be a link in the show notes for that, and you can find it on all the streaming platforms. Just look for The Search by Shilpa Ananth. In this conversation, Shilpa and I talk about her pandemic-driven departure from New York, overcoming struggles to find success, teaching at the Berklee College of Music branch in Abu Dhabi, how a new song emerged from inspiration in hard times, finding calm within herself, getting mileage out of our music releases, and best advice for singers. She was lovely to speak with. She has a great laugh, a great sense of humor, and was just a kind person. I really had a good time talking to her. Here is me and Shilpa Ananth. All right, well, let's pretend like we're just starting fresh. So you are located very near, or you're very near Dubai. This evening for you, right?
Absolutely. So I am having this call from Abu Dhabi, actually, which is the capital. And I float between Abu Dhabi and Dubai because my parents live there and I grew up there. So have my family set up over there. And then Abu Dhabi is kind of where I work. I teach here at a school, at music school. It's called Berklee College of Music. And they have a branch in the main school is in Boston. And this one is now a campus in Abu Dhabi. So I'm teaching. I'm a voice teacher here. It's also one of my roles in life as a musician.
I had no idea they had a branch there. How long has that been there?
It's been very recent, actually. So since 2020, so fairly recent. Yeah.
How are you, what are your feelings about how it's doing?
I mean, so far so good, to be honest, because I mean, I went to Berkeley in Boston, so I studied there. That's my alma mater. So when I was actually here in 2020 after a tour in India, I just come to visit my parents. That's how I ended up actually back here. I was living in New York in Brooklyn, supposed to get on a flight on April 1st, 2020. Never got on that flight because I was stuck here during the initial stage of the pandemic where everything was locked down and no flights, nothing was going, all gigs were cancelled. So essentially at that time I was reaching out and trying to see like what can I do here while I'm here? Like maybe I can shoot a music video, maybe I can work on some new music and then look at some schools and see if I can offer some workshops. So I reached out realizing that Berkeley has opened a new campus just right then. And they were like, okay, well, do you want a job interview? I was just like, what? Okay, sure. And since then, it's been quite a wild ride. Such a good ride, to be honest, because if not, I would have, probably finished off a semester or two based on the contract and then left to go back to the US. But even when things started back up again, slowly but surely, I decided to stay here, be closer to my family, but at the same time, teaching is such a huge passion of mine, along with performing and writing music. So I'm really able to balance both here in this country and the city with this job. Especially, it's allowing me time to be an artist while in the US I was, and especially in New York, I was working 9 jobs at a time just to be able to barely make my rent, Airbnb my place, just hustling, just so that I could be an artist in New York. So I'm finding a better balance here, and that's helping me also just to be able to have bigger dreams, bigger visions. So far so good. Been here since 2020 and teaching at Berkeley since 2020, and we're still gonna see how much it helps me. But so far it's been a good experience, and yeah, I love my students, and yeah, it's all different nationalities, different age groups, so it's been a good time. Yeah.
Wow, what a twist of fate. And I was going to ask if you're happy then, but you sound happy.
No, absolutely. I'm that type of person who's very much like glass half full type of mentality. So no matter what happens, I'll always try to find a way to, because that's the only way I can function. That's the only way I can actually get through. Otherwise, there's just too many things, especially as an artist, to always have, to be worried about, because we're dealing with the unknown so much of the time that the stress of it can be very very much claustrophobic, or can really bring you down. So I do my best to just see the best in the situation, and like figure out how I can learn from it if it was not a good experience. And so far, yeah, I don't know, it's been good. Like every experience I take it as a blessing, and I'm like, okay, well, if I go into like the mentality of like, if I had gone back to New York, maybe my life would have changed, or if I had done this other thing, I don't think that's going to be never ending. So I try to see it as like, this was what was meant to happen, and this door opened out of nowhere, and it could have been much worse for me during the pandemic, having all my gigs cancelled and places shut down, and how would I have paid my rent? And so the fact that I'm able to have a situation right now where I'm somewhat financially stable for the first time in my life as an artist, as a musician, I think that this is like really a stepping stone, or like a step up for me in a way, because it's helping me see like what's possible, what's on the other side of being a struggling artist all the time, or constantly starving, whether it's for the next gig or whether it's for the next paycheck. So I don't know where it's going to go from here, hopefully upwards only, but for now I'm happy.
That sounds amazing. I would imagine that other artists would love to hear what consult or tips you would offer to them when they are struggling with this common thing that you mentioned that artists can go through, where I'm at a loss for how exactly you worded it, but in those moments of doubt when things don't seem like they're going to work out, what would you offer?
So, I mean, mostly the students I teach as well, there's so many of them, they're coming from different walks of life, different periods of where what they're looking for, because some people are doing this because during the pandemic they realized, oh my god, I have so much time on my hands, more than I ever had, and I want to do the things that make me happy or bring me joy, and so some people got into it this way. And then there are people who are like, this is what I want to do with my life, I have to live these other shadow lives, but this is what I want to do. And then I have some people who are like, I'm in high school and this is the next step for me, is to study here so that I can I want to be a musician and that's what I want to do full time, not like this is something I do on the side while I'm an engineer or something. So there's like all different types of people. And I think for them, the biggest lesson, and in general, what I would say to people who are looking to be artists, I think you have to be able to be okay, because it's a huge risk. And so a big part of the process is to be patient, as well as to really embrace not knowing. I think it's very difficult for a lot of people. It's very easy to say something like that, and for someone to also be like, yeah, I got that, like, sure, that's who I am, I got this. And then when you're living that life, you're just like, wow, you know I think I need stability, or I need that monthly paycheck, or bi-weekly paycheck. Like, it takes a lot out of you, but it also it it has made me grow so much and so quickly, and so adapt in a way that I never thought I could or I would, that I know now that, like, what I'm willing to do for my art. And I think that's what I try to teach my students, and that's what I want anyone who's trying to get into the field, this crazy, like, really, it's a minefield. Like, you really don't know, like, psychologically how it's going to impact you, physically, emotionally. There's just so much happening and so much to keep up with. So I generally tell people to, like, take it one step at a time, to have practices in place that help you ground yourself, to root yourself, things that allow you to feel more balanced, whatever it is, be it meditation, be it yoga, because these are the things I do for myself. I have a morning routine and I stick to it, because I can't have everything in my life be in chaos. I need that stability that has to come from within me, so that when outside factors throw me off course, I am not completely lost and feeling like I have no idea how to get back to an ounce of what I've worked so hard to build. So there's always this pathway I create for myself. You need to have that internal GPS that tells you, like, okay, you need to do this, 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 practice every morning, do your yoga, do your meditation, do your journaling, and then you can start your work day, whatever that means, whether it's teaching, whether it's working on music, whether it's business related things that I need to take care of, or planning a tour, or whatever it is. So, taking it step by step, having grounding practices that help you really connect with yourself before you connect with others, because that's something that can potentially drain you and also make you feel. And what I mean by that is also social media, right? Because these days we think we're connecting with people, but we're really connecting with their persona online. So that also makes you start, like, comparing yourself. It puts you down, you don't even realize it, sometimes it's unconscious. So this is what I'm constantly, also along with the lessons of what I'm teaching them, what I want them to do with their voice, with what I want them to do with their musicality, I'm constantly also, like, trying to give them a reality check, and at the same time push them to not be so afraid, to take a chance, to take a risk, and to be also aware that this life, if you want this life, you have to be ready to really face all parts of this life, and not the parts that you see that are glamorous, that you see on TV or on social media of other people. It's just not how it is 100% of the time. And maybe at some points it is, and then there's big dips, so you need to be okay with, like, the highs, the lows, and all the nonsense that happens in between, when there's nothing happening and you're constantly questioning whether that means you suck.
Well, you sound like you are a great teacher, and I don't know how often these things come up, but I think that's really good. And I was laughing in my head a little bit for a moment, because I'm a like it sounds like you are. I'm very much appreciative, or very much like routine and ritual.
Hmm.
But a dog has commandeered my morning routine.
Amazing. So great.
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, yeah, it's actually great. It's definitely something that's very constant, and it takes me outdoors,
Yeah.
and he's, dogs are just the way they are. They're so happy and interested and
Yeah.
fascinated and wanting to please. So I love that. L- Let's talk for a moment, one more time,
Yeah.
about the search. So you were telling me pre-record that it had actually dropped around September, October-ish. Here I was thinking maybe it was brand new, but we were talking a little bit
Yes.
about, yeah, it's still new. You have a second EP titled Reproduction that's coming out this coming fall. We're recording February 23rd of 2023, and the search is going to be part of it. I, as I'd mentioned, I was prepping for the interview and I was just listening to the search. It sounds great. And then I wanted to see the video because it looked like there was a lot of promotion done for the video. But I noticed from the get go, when I went to probably like iTunes or Spotify to listen to it, there was this artwork,
Yes.
this animated artwork. Can you describe what went into it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because the song for me came at a very challenging and difficult time of my life. So the artwork reflects that struggle, reflects that sense of absolute darkness that I felt immersed in. So I'll talk a little bit about the journey of the song in a bit, but basically the artwork itself evolved from wanting to showcase myself as this individual who always has her heart in her hands. Because if you've seen the artwork, for this is I'm talking to the listeners, obviously you've seen it, Rob, but for anyone who's listening, it shows this like purple alien type figure with many different faces revolving around, and there's this one main face that has this look of serenity and look of understanding, but there are many other, like there's a demon face, there's a masculine looking face, there's all these different faces that are kind of rotating around her sphere, and then we've got her heart, a golden heart clutched in her hand, and a hole the center of her chest where the heart should be, and she's looking away, but basically holding her heart in her hand, and at the same time she's in kind of darkness though illuminated by the golden heart. So she's in this forest area going through life. So essentially for me, where that came from was the song talks about the search for power, the search for understanding, the search for worthiness, the search for quiet, and in general it's about this journey that I'm going through, and that I have been on for a while now. So the artwork represents just all that struggle and stress and pain and darkness that I go through on a daily basis, and kind of how I refuse to put on a different mask or a different face. I don't. I pride myself on being authentic and transparent, and very much pride myself on not being fake. And so the face is kind of this face that I have decided this is who I am, and this is who I will always be in any situation, and um, I will never close myself. I will always be ready to on my journey searching for whatever I'm looking for, whether it's my search for understanding, search for power, search for balance, or search for the person I'm supposed to be really. I will always hold my heart in my hand, and I will be open always. So that's what the artwork kind of briefly captures.
That's quite detailed briefly.
I don't know how to mince my words, or like I'm very. I can talk for ages. Honestly, you'd have to cut me off.
No, it's great. It's great. And I looked at the artwork yet again as you were talking about it
Yeah,
to see the different things that you were talking about.
yeah.
Touch on as much as you can the moment or the nature of crisis that was happening as you were putting the song together.
Absolutely. So this was also in 2020, as I talked a little bit about earlier. That was when the initial pandemic hit us, and there was the whole lockdown situation, and everyone was just in the state of like, are we going to die? What is happening? What is this virus? And we're just watching the news and just, wearing masks, not able to go out anywhere. and I was supposed to get on a flight back to New York. That never ended up happening just because I was stuck here. And thankfully, I was stuck with my parents in Dubai while I was visiting them before going on that flight. But it was such a surreal situation, and I didn't know what was happening, and I didn't know if my parents were going to be okay because, obviously they're older and you worry for them, and just felt like this really unknown, like, I mean, we constantly, like, we deal with the concept of death and the fact that we're all going to leave at some point, but this just felt so near, and yet you don't know how it's going to play out. So it just felt, I don't know, it was like a complete like trip for the mind at that time. And also being back home after being like away for 10 years, like living by myself for 10 years, living an independent life, living a life of, my routine, my rules, and suddenly being back at home with my parents and being treated like a teenager. Like it was everything for me at the time. And the song really came from a place of wanting to, needing to express myself. Otherwise, I felt like I was going insane. And this song helped me just channel my thoughts. Music in general works in a very therapeutic way for me, and most of the songs I write tend to have themes of identity crisis or existentialism or just understanding and wanting to be better or be the person I know I can be, or wanting to reach that higher self, not yet knowing the path or trying to find the path, trying to find my voice. These are the themes of most of my songs. And so the search also came from this place of like being back home, never thinking that I would shift back here or transition back here this way, and it was not my choice. My home in the meantime in Brooklyn was like just locked up, and I needed to then find a way to get my friends to go in there, pack my things, and move everything to my brother's place in Virginia into his storage. And all of this I'm doing while I'm here. So my house is being packed up, and I couldn't even say goodbye to the place that has held so many memories for me for the past 5 years at the time. And it just felt like a total time of grief and loss in so many ways. And I couldn't afford to be there without being there. My landlord kicked me out. So it was just so much going on, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And so that's where this song was actually born from, because I just started writing, and I reached out to my friend and collaborator, the producer on this song. His name is Riyatsu. He lives in Bombay and he's an incredible musician. And I reached out to him and I was like, man, I'm feeling this way. This is the kind of melody I have in my mind. These are the words. Can we write something together for this? And basically, that's how the song came about, because then he was just like, all right, sure, like let's see what we can do with this. And we worked on the song together. Lyrics and melody, everything was just a was the vehicle for me to get out my, I don't know, to get out of the depression I was feeling, or the torment that I was going through mentally as well as physically. Is just like I needed a way to express myself, and the song was a way to just put it out there. So yeah, that's how it was born, The Search.
Wow. So your voice is your primary instrument, I assume. What
Yeah.
other instruments do you dabble in or play in or excel in?
So I play a little bit of keys. I can't say that I'm an expert or in any way, shape, or form someone who's super professional at it. I can play it just enough to create my demos, to be able to convey my thoughts to other musicians, to be able to, just about put a rough mix together so that I can then get someone who's far more talented to then be able to play what I'm feeling, or to be able to, get their feedback and make it even better. So keys, I would say I can do a basic amount, and then I'm trying, my goal in life before I go is to be able to play the bass clarinet. So someday I will dabble and be able to play that. But for now, it's basically keys, and I'm also trying to pick up a little bit of guitar at this point, and I use a little bit of production software to kind of put them all together to be able to put my thoughts down. And but essentially, with the search, it was a very, very organic process where literally the recording that you hear, the final take is from my iPhone, like voice notes on my iPhone.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. It caught my eye that the tracks for the vocals or the track for the vocals were from an iPhone. What brought you and Ryatsu to the decision to do that?
So basically, for me, I mean, he was asking me to go to the studio and record it professionally, but I was just like, I don't know. The song came from such a raw and intensely painful, but at the same time, sweet place of like, this is the most natural I can sound. Like, you pick up the phone and just put the idea down, no processing, no extra filters. Like, it was just this. And so, I could have gone into the studio. I even bought a mic and had a whole setup at that point because I was just like, well, if we're going to be inside, I might as well now like have a setup for myself with all of these things. So I can do this more professionally. But I decided not to do that just because I wanted to keep that sense of truth that the voice came from, where the place that where it all started. I wanted it to be that for the final product, not like, oh, this is where it started and now it's this beautiful polished, like completely like sounding like as though I'm trying to mimic that, but not really. Like, again, like I said, I try to really maintain my authenticity, and I wanted that to have that because I was like, well, I don't think I can capture this now that it's like maybe 2 months later or 3 months later. It's like the feeling is not the same anymore. And I wanted it to just be exactly where I was when I did it in the first place, and not change a thing. Like, even if it didn't sound perfect, I was like, it's okay. This is what the song is, and the song doesn't have to be anything that it is not.
Well, it sounds cool. So kudos to you and
Thank you.
Ryatsu. One of the reasons it did catch my attention is I started this series, which I've been doing very slowly. I call it drums and loops. So I'll just play a short bit of drums over a loop from the Apple Pro, Logic Pro
Mm.
library.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I'm just doing the video on an iPhone, but I have actual recording gear. So I have that on. But the first one I did, and I've been doing it since, I thought I'm curious to see what it would sound like, because the iPhone captured the whole audio itself. And so I'd be interested to see what it sounds like to put the two together,
Yeah.
which was a little bit of a challenge for me, but I got it together and it sounds really cool. It's different every time though. Like I have one where I remember very distinctly, I couldn't use it through the entire recording because there was like, I guess you call it phase where they didn't line up the same from beginning to end. And I'm just like, I'm not going to try to fix that. So I'll just fade the iPhone out. And then I have another recent one I did on a hand drum,
Yeah.
and I get this flange effect, probably from phase, but it's just so slight. Just right in the middle of it, you hear this sort of flangey
Oh,
sound, but it's really interesting what they can do.
so cool. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I can't wait to go back and listen again because I listened before I read, I guess, from one of your interviews that vocal track was from an iPhone. So I
Oh,
have to go
yeah.
back and listen. It does sound great, though.
Thank you.
What do you like to do when you're not making music?
Ooh, I love to watch movies. I love to go to the theater. Actually, that's like one of my jams. Like, I feel so happy when I'm buying a ticket and then the smell of popcorn. It's just like something very much rooted in nostalgia for me, just because I don't know, like it's just like going to the theater, watching a movie. It just feels like the most comforting thing. So that is something that I really enjoy, and I stay until the very end. Like, I watch the credits because I'm always like, one day my name will be up there like the musician credits, so I'm always just like, and then I'm clapping for people too, like when they show the music credits, I'm like, yes, like, go, whoever you are, you did it, like, you're up there, your name's there, like, generally that's like my practice. So I really paying homage to all the people who worked on the movie, and they worked so hard. That's why we got to enjoy it for the past 2-3 hours. So yes, that's one of my things that I do. And then
That's cool.
I also love to thank you. And I'm vegan, so I love to also like try out new cuisine, like in terms of what can I make with vegan ingredients, and what cuisine can I kind of like, cater to my taste, and like give it a shot in the kitchen. So like cooking is a different like way that I release my creativity, and that really helps me just also just do something that is not as nerve wracking as sometimes it's like, oh my God, this song, I need to finish it. Or like, oh my God, this student is like really getting on my nerves. It's just like another outlet of like, okay, how can I express my creativity and at the same time do something new and fresh, and feed myself and feed my soul. So yeah, I think watching movie or binging some Netflix and watching a good show, or else Cooking, and then also reading is something that really helps me also just take my mind off of my own life and get into another character's shoes and get some perspective and that. So I think these three things are kind of like my main thing. And then, of course, like I mentioned, I have my yoga practice, I have my daily journaling, daily meditation. So these things are all kind of like the ways mediums that I use to center myself. Also, like going for a live show is very, very inspiring to me. So checking out other artists, going for live shows, and then if I can go dancing as well, then that's it. That's my life made.
What's the music scene like there?
It's really diverse and cool. A lot of international acts come through actually. So I just last night I went for Kevin Hart, so got to see him in action. That was incredible. Backstreet Boys are coming up soon. Imagine Dragons were here just recently. So it it's super super cool where like you get a lot of cool acts coming from outside. So you don't need to really travel to see anyone. Beyonce was just here. So you get to see people that you love and you get to see them up close, and that's awesome always. But at the same time, like in terms of like the live scene, I think there's some really cool acts, like with whether it's jazz or Cuban music or pop music, in terms of like covers or original talent as well. I think I really get more excited when I see some original artists coming through, just because that's something that's fresh, that's new. And when you hear, like Arabic hip hop and stuff, it's just something that you're like, whoa, I never knew that could be done like that way, and it's so cool. So I think there are some cool local artists and a lot of people to look out for over here. Can be pretty diverse, but still in terms of like, there's always going to be that, I guess, push and pull where the businesses always want to play the music that will sell. And so I want to see a little bit more of live music in terms of original artists and original genres and voices coming through. I think that'll happen hopefully in the next 5 to 7 years. But it's not like in New York. It's like people would randomly go to see. Like people would come see me. They don't even know me, but they've just come to the venue, or they've just heard. They just looked through the program and they were like, okay, let me go check out this person. But that doesn't happen so much over here, and then you tend to become like background music, which is something I like avoid at all costs, because I'm just like, if I'm gonna do a show, I want to be seen, I want to be heard. I've done the background thing in New York. I don't want to be someone else's like music while they, cut their steak or like sip their wine. Like that's just not my vibe, not anymore. I think there's always going to be that sort of push and pull when it comes to these kind of events and the scene here, especially. But it is changing. It's gotten a lot better since when I was a kid, and obviously there was not much of a scene then at all. So I think it's growing, it's getting better, and I'm hopeful that it'll only be more inclusive, more cool and vibrant as the years go by.
Nice. It sounds pretty good.
Hmm.
I've been struck in the short time that I've been in Querétaro, the city in Mexico in which I live, that the music that I've gone to see and the first gig that I did have been for listening audiences as opposed to restaurant or at a bar or something. And I'm sure I've barely started to explore the scene, but well, there has been. I'm sorry, I take that back. There has been one venue, a winery, which is just a beautiful
Yeah.
outdoor setting, and the poor band, great band, but they were just set up in the strangest place. But anyway, it's been nice, especially since my first gig was in a listening room. So it's such a great feeling, right?
Nice, of course, absolutely. Like every gig somehow it just teaches you something, and at the same time, if you're doing it for the right reasons, and you're doing it from a place of like, this is going to give me something, like it's a stepping stone for myself, for my career. Like I think like yeah, as long as you know why you're doing it and you're doing it for the right reasons for yourself, I think that's just like that's the end game, and that's all you can really expect or ask for, because then you just it takes you to a different place, and then no matter what happens, you feel like you're okay. You got yourself, your back, you've got your back kind of thing, you're covered. So yeah.
That's really good. Good observation. Is there anything about music or life that you've recently changed your mind about?
About music or life?
Yeah, I just wanted to give you the option of life.
Not really life, but I'm just kidding. I think in terms of like mm, music, I would say in general, I've become a lot more patient, I would say, with myself and with my process. Definitely not as patient as I would like to be. Maybe that's a work in progress. But I think like there was a time when I was just so consumed by like this productivity and constant need to like be making something and doing something and like the next thing, and then the destination keeps changing, and so your idea of success keeps changing, and you're never good enough, and you're never doing enough, and it's just all this constant state of like unhappiness. And I think I'm really embracing and trying to be more mindful of just like the little things, and not be so hard on myself and feel guilty, or really just like push myself into the ground if I'm not able to get to like, I don't know, 3 things on my to-do list of 20 things to do in a day, you know? So I think I'm trying really hard to just be more kind with myself. And I think that has really helped a lot, because I think I do see a lot, like I see myself just be more kinder in general to myself. Because I think like what happens a lot is that I'm very much a patient person to other people. I can be very understanding and forgiving to everyone else, but when it comes to myself, I don't understand why I treat myself differently, and have to be so harsh about my progress and or lack of, if that's how I feel. So that is something that has just, that little shift and being a little bit more celebratory of like the little things has brought a lot more joy into my life, and I see the difference. Because that's why even when you said like, oh, it came out in September, it's old news, I'm like, no, it ain't. It feels like it's going on, like I'm still promoting it. Like it just feels like that, something like that. I would have also been like, wow, he's right. I should, like, why am I not putting out more like quickly? And everything happens at a time, and I've really started to just lean into time as this very relative thing, and everything happens at the time that it's supposed to, and I just have to go with it and believe that it will happen at the way that it's supposed to happen at, and be the best for me, and that's really helped me a lot to just be more calm and patient with my journey, with myself, with my process.
Well, don't even think that it's old news because those words came out of my mouth. I was just when I said it, and I want you to know this too, because I hear you beat yourself up really quick there. But I was thinking it was a brand new release, and I had an interview yesterday with a hip hop artist, and she literally had the song was coming out today, and I probably had that on my mind, and I'm seeing all this great promotion for your song, and it just felt like it was so recent. But it's not that long ago. I've only released 2 songs in my life, and only started trying to write a couple of years ago, and I guess a year came up on one of them, and it passes so quickly. But
It
yeah, you're
does,
right.
yeah.
It's not that old.
No, but time is so crazy, because it does feel like it feels to me also like recent. But even when, that's why when you ask the question, like, when did it release? I'm like, oh my God, it was in September, but it feels like just a couple, maybe a month ago, or 2 months max, is still like working on the the post production, and then so much has happened from that time to now. But like, so no, I didn't take it to heart or anything. Don't worry. It's just more like it would have affected me at a different time of my life. It's just something that like time is so different. Like, and I think every release of mine, I would have like Search actually finished. I finished working on it in 2020. The video was finished by 2021, and yet I only released it in 2022. So everything happens at the right time at like at the time that it's supposed to come out. So I believe in that strongly. So for me, it's just like that really has helped to just keep me also like just more understanding of others, and as well as myself. So no worries at all.
Well, I think this is great that we're talking about it, because if the tables were turned and you had asked me that question and I was in your shoes, I would have had that thought in my head, like, wow, I'm like, this is an old song, and
Yeah.
but it's not true, and I think it's great for music artists or independent musicians to remember also that you can get so much mileage over time out of even
Absolutely.
just a single song by doing different things with it, be it a video that didn't come out at the same time or whatever.
Exactly. And I feel like a lot of the time people kind of, and this is not just people, I mean, I've done this too, where I would release something and then I'm like, all right, it's out and that's it. Like my job is done. But actually, so much of it is, like you have to keep going. It's like not just the promotion before the song, but even during the release and then after the release, like you just got to keep going until one day it's like, okay, it might have its moment like 3 years later from now, that like people are like, wait, this song is amazing, when did it come out? Oh my god, it's actually been out for a while, and it's just that I'm hearing it now. So gotta keep working, because you never know who's listening, who's watching, and when the moment will come. So yeah, definitely it does put you in a space of like you don't really know, because it feels fresh, but at the same time it's old. But it's like that fine balance where you're like, okay, as long as I have something else I'm working towards, and this doesn't become like the only song I release in my life, if that's not what I want, then I should be working towards my next release.
Sure. I learned a lesson from all this too. When I'm doing interviews, I'm going to be very careful with this type of question because musicians are so sensitive, aren't we?
It's so true. It's so true. But like I don't know, the way I operate is also just like, you see, I'm super honest. I'm just like, if I feel something, I just express it, so that it's easier that way. Because then whoever you're communicating with gets it, and also it's just like it's a conversation. At the end of the day, I'm not going to hold it in, like, and something always to learn from. So yeah, no worries. You're right. It's a super sensitive. Like it's definitely something that like to be mindful of. But I don't think it's that much. Like I don't think you have to think about it that much,
Oh,
honestly.
I can just hear all the people I've talked to who I maybe said something similar to, and they're like, "Man," beating themselves up for days.
Yeah.
What is your best advice for singers?
Warm up. I would say that is the best advice I can give, because even with my own students and generally what I'm seeing with the local artists out here as well, I just feel like people don't give enough time to a good warm up, like trying to do a couple of lip trills, whether it's some like singing up and down the major scale, whether it's just like doing exercises that bring out your vowels, like whatever it is, it's gonna help you. It's setting you up. Like you wouldn't run a marathon, and this is like my analogy. I'm like, you wouldn't run a marathon without some kind of preparation, and if you do, you're crazy, and you're not going to be able to have a sustainable career in the industry. But basically, the same way that you wouldn't do that you would actually go to the gym, or you would run every day, you would kind of track your time, your progress, the same way you need to be able to actually, like every day, even if it means like 15-20 minutes or 10 minutes at the minimum, you need to be able to do some kind of warm-ups before you sing. And constantly, whether you sing or not, it's your voice being your instrument. This is inside your body. It's a whole body instrument. Your mind is connected to your breath is connected. You need to do your breathing exercises. You need to do some physical activity as well. Like it's all connected. When we're not like playing an instrument that's outside, it's internal. So everything affects it. And that's why it's important to really focus on all aspects of yourself, so that you can be the best vocalist, the best artist, the best musician that there is for yourself at the time anyway. There's just no other way around it. And just going ahead and singing the song with absolutely no work, no prep, in the long run is going to damage your vocal cords. It's going to cause a lot of tension for you, strain. You're going to develop polyps, potentially set up very unhealthy habits that are not at all good to continue, if this is what you want to do, if this is who you want to be. So that is the thing that I cannot stress enough, cannot say enough, is always do your warm ups, whether you sing or whether it's a concert or a rehearsal or a recording session, whatever. If even if it's just a regular day, you're using your voice to speak constantly. So we use it to scream, we use it to shout, we use it to cry, we use it to laugh. Like you need to warm it up. So that's the first thing you need to do, the first moment like you open your eyes. um, have a little bit of your morning routine, and then before you speak with anyone, warm up your voice with a couple of basic exercises that I'm sure you can find on YouTube. But find the one that's working for you, and do that every day for at least 10 minutes. And then, you gift yourself your voice first thing in the morning and warm it up before you gift it to someone else, you know?
I saw, as I was trolling your Instagram, a little video of 3 easy warm-ups, which I thought I'm going to put a link for that in the show notes. But thank you for all the elaboration there. I obviously have heard that advice before, but not in quite the detail. A follow-up question: I've never heard anybody talk about this except one artist that I did a gig with in San Francisco. When we were leaving, we were just talking about the voice. And does anyone ever talk about, as we do warm up, but does anyone ever talk about, I'm just going to throw out the term because it's the same exercise analogy, but like a cool down for the voice?
Absolutely. 100%. And that's what I do with my students as well. Like, you have to, just like you warm up your voice, you have to cool down your voice at the end of the day, at the end of your practice or session or whatever you're doing as well, because it's like essentially you're running your body hot, and then it's like it stays hot. And so, especially if you're like done with the day, then after this, I would tell my students, like, don't talk to anyone, just drink some warm ginger tea and go to bed. Like, that's like you cooling your system down. And now the more you talk or the more you sing after that, you're going to end up heating yourself up, and you're warming up again. So that is, something that's super important. You need to have cool down exercises, cool down techniques as well. Just as much as you are warming yourself up, you need to also shut your body down. Yeah.
Very nice. So I gathered from my trolling about online that shilpaananth.com is a great place to find out about all the things you're doing. I presume I don't remember specifically, but I bet it's all connected to your socials. It wasn't where I started out, by the way, but it's a lovely website. Absolutely. And I would recommend people check that out. Shilpa, it was a pleasure speaking with you.
You as well. And honestly, Rob, you're saying my name so perfectly. Like, have you ever said these two, like name, first name, last name? Have you ever said these two names before?
Maybe not, but I worked with startups in the San Francisco Bay Area, and you can imagine that I met a few folks of Indian descent where I heard names that might have a little bit of similarity.
Got it. No, this is like the way you're saying it is super, super, like just right down to like how an Indian person would call my name. So good on you.
I'm so proud of myself because I thought, I'm going to ask her if that's right. And I'm like, no, I got it.
You got it. You absolutely got it. That was absolutely perfect. I was very surprised listening to you say it. I was like, oh, wow. Okay, good. Good listening skills. Good. You got it.
If you do not yet have a website for your music, check out Bandzoogle. It was created to help musicians and bands build their website and manage direct-to-fan marketing and sales. Bandzoogle features amazing design options, a commission-free store to sell merch, music, tickets, and you get detailed fan data. And there's more. Try it free at bandzoogle.com. Use the promo code ROBONZO, that's ROBONZO, to get 15% off your first year. You've been listening to The Unstarving Musician with Robonzo. That's me. Please follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can find links and mentions for this episode at unstarvingmusician.com. Thanks again for listening. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.